Big one. Big one.
Hey guys, Alton Jones Jr. here. I'm using one of my favorite baits in the winter time, early spring, when these fish are, kind of transitioning into pre-spawn, and that is a big spinnerbait. And I've got a Colorado blade with the number 6 on here, a bellow shad as a trailer, and so there's 3 things to think about when fishing a spinnerbait. It's going to be blade size, blade type, blade size and blade type, the size of the head, and the size of the trailer that you're using. So in clear water like what we've got here today, visibility's in that 2-foot range. Typically I'm going to downsize the blade. This is a number 6, it's a little too big. And then I'm also going to throw a more subtle trailer like the bellow shad here. It's going to have a tight body shimmy. It doesn't have that big boot tail kick. It's a much more natural action. And then when it comes to the size of the head and size of the blade, the bigger the blade, the more that bait's going to want to rise. The bigger the head, the more it's going to sink. And so you kind of got to match that action up with the depth that you're trying to fish. Dirtier water, I like a bigger blade, more of a boot style action. Clear water, I'm going to downsize the blade, and possibly if it's really clear, I'm going to even throw a willow blade. But I tend in the springtime, if I'm looking for that big bite, early spring pre-spawn, I'm going to throw a Colorado. I love the vibrations, and I feel like they'll come hunt it down a little bit better. But this bellow shad for this little bit cleaner water is absolutely amazing. It looks like it's not going to do anything, but with the vibration of this bait and the ribs on this trailer, it swims just like a shad. So it gives them a nice bulky target to bite onto. It's soft, and it's one of my favorite ways to catch them in the springtime. You'll know when you get a bite because they'll about take the rod out of your hand. The reason I use a spinnerbait is it's kind of the big swim bait of the winter time. It's a big presence. It tends to get a big bite. If I'm ever looking for a kicker fish, it's going to be this bait right here. Very rarely is this going to be a lot of bites generated with a bait of this caliber. But if I've already filled my limit with a jig or a drop shot or a square bill, that's when I'm going to pick this bait up and really try to look for that big bass who's looking for that big meal. And this is the key, and especially in Texas, to catching that big kicker fish that's going to fill out your limit. I caught so the first day I caught one on a crankbait and then 4 on a spinnerbait. But my spinnerbait fish was an 8-13, a 6 even, and a 4-15, and then like a 2-pounder. So they were big ones. And then but my one crankbait fish was also, it was a 7-13 or 7-10, something like that. I caught my big one in about 6 foot, but I'll fish. So I had different spinnerbaits rigged up for different applications. So I had a one size smaller blade than this. I had a 5, not a 6, and then I had a 3/4 on, so it would actually get down. And then I also had a 1 ounce that I could fish pretty effectively, and I had to let it sink, but like 12 foot. And I was just fishing like key stumps on the outside edge of channel swings. Like they had the real gnarly root systems off of them and stuff like that. But then at Red Crest, which I didn't do well in, I caught them on almost every one of them on this. On a 3/4 with a number 5 and the bellow shad as a trailer. So if I wouldn't be throwing a 3/4 if I was, this Colorado blade like really keeps it high in the water. So like right now, you can see how I'm reeling it in my baits. I'm almost on the bottom in 6 right now. I learned a lot from Jason Christie, and he kind of taught me. He's like, nah, I was like, do you bump and grind the bottom with it? And he's like, nah, dude. He's like, they come hunt it. He's like, that big, ugly, nasty knocker. He's like, when a 1 wants it, they come get it. It calls them. Oh, I did have one follow it there for sure. Followed it right off the point right there. He didn't look big though. To me, water temp is not as important as like temperature trend, I'd rather fish 48-degree water that's been 43 than I would to fish 53 that's been 58. You see what I'm saying? Like I think like the trend of the temperature is more important than the temperature itself. Because they're either like in a good mood, hey, it's getting warmer, or hey, oh, I don't like it. It's a comfort thing. Either they're getting more comfortable or getting less comfortable.
Hardest part about trees like this is fishing it properly. Like it's all about angles. Multiple angled casts, like down the same, trying to bring it down the tree, but you know, the tree had different arms on it, you know, and she was actually sitting right in like in a V of it. She was sitting right in the V, and I had to bring it right past her. And it's just crazy. It took that many casts, but when I did bring it by her, she ate the entire bait. I mean, it was like an aggressive rod thumper. So aggressive where you'd think she would have swam at me 100 miles an hour and hit it, but I just had to bring it right in front of her. There are fish around this, but I think you're gonna get a lot of trash fish this far up in the river. Because I'm throwing a lighter weight bait, and that much plastic's gonna make this thing rise too much. I think this might be a 3/8, so it's really light. Just like most of the wood we're gonna fish in here, what wood we find is gonna be shallower, and I can reel this a lot slower around the cover. I mean, smaller almost always is gonna get, and it's still just a little cleaner than I like here for that Colorado. Smaller is just always gonna tend to generate more bites. I've got the Gcrack Gyrostar here. You see I have it rigged on a spinnerbait, one of the many applications I like to throw this bait. And you know, ways I throw this bait, I'll throw it on the back of a buzz bait, I'll throw it on the back of a spinnerbait, I'll throw it by itself, and I'll throw it on a chatterbait. One of the reasons I like the Gyrostar and when I look for the Gyrostar is when I'm trying to get the bait down, when I'm fishing it incredibly slow. You know, it's a slender profile, so it doesn't really inhibit the action of the bait, but it adds that good boot tail action. You know, the hard profile of the body, which you think soft plastic's hard, it's not gonna have good movement. It's the perfect combo. It's a hard enough body and head where I don't have to worry about it pulling down around the shank of the hook when a fish bites it, but also it's soft enough where that boot tail is gonna do the job that it needs to do. You know, some examples of where I fished it, Lake Fork, the event I won last year. I caught an 8-pound 13-ouncer, not on this exact spinnerbait, it was a 3/4 ounce version, but I was throwing the Gcrack Gyrostar as a trailer because I'm trying to get it down. And why would I throw a trailer instead of not a trailer? It's just, I feel like the blade and the thump and the vibration calls them in, but when they get close, the trailer is what's gonna make them bite. And you know, those Lake Fork fish, they're as finicky as they get pressure all year long. And that's why I chose the Gcrack Gyrostar. Get it down in the water column, put it right in the front of the fish and reel it slow. You know, when fishing a spinnerbait, I'm pretty particular about my tackle, and one thing I cannot stress enough, it is not a finesse tactic. Line size, I like to err on the side of big. You know, I throw anywhere from 17 to 20 pound, depending on how heavy the cover is and how deep I'm trying to get the bait. And then I'm throwing a big rod. Both of these are 7.3 heavies. I don't want anything longer than this because with a spinnerbait, you're still gonna have to get accurate casts. Sometimes with a smaller spinnerbait like I have here, I'll switch down to a 7-footer. But you know, I wanna have good feeling of the bait. So you know, something heavy with a lot of backbone on that heavy line. And then when one eats it, I need to be able to get that hook in them, because especially here in the pre-spawn, the fish's mouth are extremely hard. And it's not a light wire hook, so you need to be able to move a lot of line and hit them with a lot of power. You can see here, I've got a 3/4 with a bellow shad rigged up, and I've got a 1/2 here with the Gcrack Gyrostar. Just two different baits for two different situations. And you know, if you're looking to go catch a big one, go try it out for yourself. Heavy line, big spinnerbaits, it's a lot of fun. Big one. Big one. I had my drag way too loose. Stay on. Come here. Come here. It's cold. You can't have that much energy. Okay. How about that? That is a tank, dude. Got the old Gyrostar on the back of the spinnerbait. I don't know, 6-pounder. That's a big one. It's not been easy today, and we've caught some other fish. You know, had to generate some bites on a crankbait. Couldn't get a big bite. The spinnerbait got us a big bite. Golly, giant. That was sick.
That's sick, man.